All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're talking about something that is so human, our need for physical touch. And more importantly, what happens to our minds and our bodies, when we're just not getting enough of it.
Okay, let me ask you something. You ever have that feeling where you're in a room full of people, maybe even with your best friends, but you still feel kind of lonely, disconnected, like you're all by yourself, even though you're not? Well, you're not imagining it. It's a real feeling, and there's a real reason for it.
So that feeling we just talked about, it actually has a name. It's called touch starvation. You might also hear it called skin hunger. And it's exactly what it sounds like, a deep, real longing for physical contact. You know, a hug, a simple pat on the back, anything. It's what happens when our bodies and our minds just aren't getting the amount of touch they need to thrive. And get this, it's as fundamental to us as food and water.
So what does this actually do to us? Let's start with what's going on in our heads, with our emotions.
Okay, so when we don't get that physical contact, it can set off this huge emotional ripple effect. First, those feelings of loneliness and isolation, they get way stronger. It's also been linked to a higher risk for things like anxiety and even depression. See, the thing about touch is that it sends this really powerful subconscious message to our brains that says, hey, you belong, you're accepted. And when we don't get that message, our own sense of self-worth can really start to take a hit.
And the science behind this is actually pretty wild. It's basically like a battle of hormones going on inside of us. On one side, you've got oxytocin. That's the good guy, the connection hormone. When we get a hug, our body releases it, making us feel safe, trusting, and less anxious. But on the other side, you've got cortisol, the stress hormone. Now, here's the cool part. Touch actively reduces cortisol. So no touch means less of that good oxytocin and more of that stressful cortisol just hanging around. It's no wonder we end up feeling so tense.
And believe me, this isn't all just in your head. Those hormone changes, they send out signals that your entire body responds to. It gets physical. Physically speaking, all that extra cortisol means we're walking around with higher stress levels all the time. A lot of people also find it really hard to sleep or just have really bad quality sleep. Why? Because a comforting touch is one of the key ways our nervous system learns to calm down. But maybe the weirdest thing that happens is how we start to react to touch itself.
Yeah, and this is where it gets kind of paradoxical. For some people, the lack of touch leads to this intense craving for it. That's that skin hunger we were talking about. But for others, the complete opposite happens. After a long time without it, they can actually start to avoid touch. It starts to feel weird, uncomfortable, maybe even a little threatening. And that, of course, just pushes them further away from people.
But you know, our brains are pretty clever. When they're not getting something they need, they get resourceful. We start, usually without even realizing it, to look for other things, substitutes, to try and fill that void.
So do any of these sound familiar to you? A lot of us pour affection onto our pets, and that's actually a fantastic way to fight loneliness. Or maybe you're someone who loves the feeling of a heavy blanket or just hugging a giant pillow at night. We might even find ourselves drawn to online friendships, where we can get that social connection without any of the messiness of physical intimacy. These are all totally normal ways our brains try to make up for what they're missing.
Okay, so we've laid out the problem, but here's the good news, and it's really good news. This isn't a permanent state, not at all. So let's switch gears and talk about solutions. Let's build a toolkit for how to reconnect.
But first, one really important point. There's no one-size-fits-all when it comes to touch. Everybody's different. Your personality, your culture, it all plays a part in how much touch you need. The real problem, the thing that causes all the negative effects, is the gap between what you want and what you're getting.
So what can we actually do about it? Here are 5 really simple, practical things you can try. Seriously, it can be as easy as giving a friend or family member a real, meaningful hug. We already mentioned pets. They are amazing for this. You could also try something like a professional massage, which is literally therapeutic touch. Or hey, a weighted blanket can give you that calming, hug-like pressure. And finally, just moving your body in things like yoga or dance helps you get back in touch with yourself.
And that really brings us to the big picture, doesn't it? We live in this world that's so dominated by screens. So much of our interaction happens through a piece of glass. And that means we have to be more deliberate, more intentional about finding real, genuine physical connection than ever before. So I'll just leave you with this question to think about. In a world full of screens, how are you going to find that meaningful connection?